We are looking at Imam Ghazali's definitions of reason, or different conceptions of reason. And last time we looked at his the definition he quoted from Imam Haris bin Asad al-Muhasibi, and that was basically that the reason is a faculty or a power or an instrument through which we are able to get to the theoretical knowledge. And we defined what theoretical knowledge means. Theoretical knowledge basically here means mediated knowledge or inferential knowledge. And he said it is as if it is a light which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts in everybody's heart. So this is just a metaphor, and he will actually, Imam Ghazali will actually say something at the end which will make it clear that by nur it doesn't mean something immaterial necessarily. وَكَأَنَّهُ نُورٌ يُقْذَفُ فِي الْقَلْبِ, and through which we are able to know the things around us and navigate through the world around us, whether it's the world, the objective world, or the social world, I guess. And then Imam Ghazali goes on to consider some of the criticism which is leveled against this definition of Imam Hasbi from among his own school, and we looked at it and the possible reason for it the last time, so we won't go into it again. So he said, وَلَمْ يُنْصِفْ مَنْ أَنْكَرَ هَذَا. So whoever denies this definition is not fair. وَرَدَّ الْعَقْلَ إِلَى مُجَرَّدِ الْعِلْمِ الْعُلُومِ الضَّرُورِيَّةِ. And those who claim that reason is basically necessary knowledge or the self-evident knowledge. Not all of the self-evident knowledge, but at least some of it. And we looked at it in what possible sense we can say that the reason can be equated with the necessary or self-evident knowledge. But today we'll just so we had done up to this point, and we'll start from here today. And as I said last time, I had tried to justify in what sense reason can be equated with necessary knowledge or self-evident knowledge. And I said, among other things, that we can think of it as the basic either innate knowledge, which is necessary for the operation of reason in the first place, that is the knowledge of the first principles or the fundamental principles on which reason is based, or the operation of reason is based, for example the law of non-contradiction, etc. Or we can consider it as the basic structure of our mind, which is needed for the operation of reason in the first place. So we that was our justification. So in that sense, one could say that reason is necessary knowledge. But firstly, you can't say that reason is only necessary knowledge, because reason, even if it is necessary knowledge, that doesn't exhaust reason, because reason build on that necessary knowledge to do some other activities which are important, which is, generally speaking, as Zabedi in his commentary attribute this to Imam Al-Haramain actually. So there are two types of from Imam Al-Haramain. They have quoted the critique of this conception of reason, but also other quotes which actually agree with this. And among other things, reason is a faculty through which we seek necessary knowledge. And this necessary knowledge, according to this explanation, would be on top of that necessary knowledge, which is constitutive of a reason. And then based on that, we develop theoretical knowledge or inferential knowledge or mediated knowledge. So reason is an instrument for this knowledge, or instrument or a power or faculty through which we are able to seek or able to acquire necessary knowledge as well as mediated knowledge or inferential knowledge. But beyond this justification, it has to be said that we shouldn't equate knowledge with reason, because reason is the instrument through which we acquire knowledge. Reason itself is not a knowledge. So those who equate reason with knowledge, they sort of don't differentiate enough between instrument, process, and the product. So knowledge is the product, and reason is the instrument, and reasoning is the process. So we have to differentiate between these three things. So that's why Imam Ghazali said that those who have criticized Imam Hasbi's definition are not fair to him, because they haven't understood his definition properly. If they had understood it, how can somebody deny that reason is an instrument of knowledge, and how can somebody deny that reasoning is different from reason and knowledge is different from reasoning and reason? So those who are denying this definition, they are not differentiating between reason, reasoning, and knowledge, because reason is the instrument or faculty, and this is the process, and this is the product. So reason provides us with necessary knowledge and theoretical knowledge. But obviously Imam Hasbi is not claiming this, and Imam Ghazali is not claiming this, and it will become clear, and none of Ash'aris claim that reason is sufficient for all types of knowledge. What they're saying is reason is necessary and sufficient for certain types of knowledge, and for other type of knowledge, reason might be necessary but not sufficient, for example. And there might be other types of knowledge for which reason is neither necessary nor sufficient. So here are three things. So first we need to differentiate between so there are a few things. First we need to differentiate between reason, reasoning, and knowledge. Second, we need to say that through reason we acquire necessary knowledge as well as theoretical knowledge, or at least some of it. Number three, reason is necessary and sufficient for certain type of knowledge. Then reason is necessary but not sufficient for certain other type of knowledge. And then there might be knowledge for which reason is neither necessary nor sufficient, and we can come up with some other distinction as well. So these are some of the distinctions which should be remembered, and if you remember these, then you won't criticize Imam Hasbi's definition. It's a straightforward definition of the function of reason as a thing of this world which is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those powers are not intrinsic to reason. Obviously they have been put in there by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He creates them. Whether he creates them every moment or he creates them, on a long-term basis, that's up to him. And in any way he creates them, he sustains them as well, because without his will nothing can remain even an iota of a second. So that's not even a debate. That's not even debatable. So ولم ينصف من أنكر هذا ورد العقل إلى مجرد العلوم الضرورية، فإن الغافل عن العلوم والنائم يسميان عاقلين باعتبار وجود هذه الغريزة فيهما مع فقد العلوم. وكما أن الحياة غريزة بها يتهيأ الجسم للحركات الاختيارية والإدراكات الحسية، فكذلك العقل غريزة بها تتهيأ بعض الحيوانات للعلوم النظرية. So Imam Ghazali is saying, this is just an explanation of what we said before. So those who deny that reason is an instrument or faculty of power, they didn't understand the things properly, and so some of those who limited reason to certain type of knowledge, they didn't differentiate between reason and reasoning and knowledge. And he's giving the example of somebody who's sleeping. So he has his reason even when he's sleeping, because what we mean by reason is the potential. So when he wakes up, he can use it. But as if Imam Ghazali is saying is that if reason was equated with knowledge, the one who is sleeping has no knowledge at the time. But he has his reason, even though he's not using it. Although I think this is not a very good explanation, because those who say reason is knowledge could say a similar sort of thing. So that's not a very good point, but we understand what Imam is trying to say as we explain. But this is more important. So reason is like life. So life is an instrument or a power or a characteristic through which a body is able to move, for example, through its own volition. And there are different type of volitions. There's type of volition which humans share with other animals, and there's type which is specific to humans. But life gives humans and animals this power to move. So when we say that life gives this power, it doesn't mean that life has this intrinsic power, but that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives through life this power. And stones, for example, don't have that characteristic of power. That's why they can't move in the sense in which animals and humans move. So reason is the same type of thing, as Imam Al-Ghazali says here. Reason. فَكَذَلِكَ الْعَقْلُ. So reason is like life, through which some animals, that is humans, can acquire inferential knowledge, mediated knowledge, and also necessary knowledge as some other. Imam Ghazali doesn't say here, but some other Yazabedi says in the commentary, for example, and attributed to some of the Ash'ari. And then the next paragraph he sort of tried to defend Imam Muhasibi against possible objections, but we had whatever we needed covered this, so I'll just not get into this because it's not related to our understanding of reason. So we'll just take it from here. وَهُوَ كَالْمِرَاةِ. And this actually makes it clear that for Imam Al-Ghazali, reason is not necessarily something immaterial. It might be immaterial, but not necessarily, because if we just focus on this example. And it also clarifies in what sense reason is an instrument of knowledge, for example. Okay. So reason is like a mirror. So mirror is a body like other bodies. But what differentiates it from other bodies, that it is so transparent that through it you can see other things in it because of its transparency. So it share body with other things, for example, a chair or a table, or less transparent glasses. But it is also differentiated from the body through this characteristics of transparency, through which we can see images in it of things which we cannot see in other body. So that doesn't mean that mirror is not a body and it's some immaterial thing. It just means that it's a body which is very transparent, or which has certain characteristics which other bodies don't have. In a similar manner, reason is like any other material things, but it has transparency in a way a mirror has a transparency, and because of that transparency, through it we can acquire knowledge in a way that we cannot through other instruments of our mind, for example, or of our body, for example. And then he goes on to give another example of an eye. Eye is a material thing, just like, for example, forehead, and it has a lot of similarity with other part of human body, but it is differentiated from other part of bodies through its characteristics. It has certain characteristics which my forehead doesn't have it, or my ears don't have it, and through those characteristics an eye can see, but I cannot see through my forehead, for example. In a similar way, فَنِسْبَةُ هَذِهِ الْغَرِيزَةِ, in a similar way, reason. That's how reason is related to knowledge. So the relationship between knowledge and reason can be understood on the example of the relationship between a mirror and what is seen through mirror, or the relationship between an eye and what is seen through an eye. فَنِسْبَةُ هَذِهِ الْغَرِيزَةِ إِلَى الْعُلُومِ كَنِسْبَةِ الْعَيْنِ إِلَى الرُّؤْيَةِ. So here Imam Ghazali is making that thing clear, the difference between instrument, process, and the product. So knowledge is a product, and reason is an instrument. And then there's a process, which is reasoning, in a similar way in which a mirror is a an instrument, and there's a process, and through that we see an image. So knowledge is like image, and this here process is like reasoning, and mirror is like reason. In a similar way, our eye, that's like reason. That's why sometimes metaphorically people call reason the eye of our mind. So they're the process of light, and and the process goes through in the brain. In a similar way, there's the process that's called reasoning, and here we see objects which are seen, and here knowledge which is acquired. So the reason is to our mind, like an eye is to the body, and the objects seen by eyes are to reason. Knowledge acquired through reason is like an object seen through eye. So that's a very good example. So it's clear that reason is an instrument and a power, a faculty, an organ in a sense, and it makes clear in what sense it's an organ or an instrument, and what's the relationship between it and its object. Okay, and then he goes on to say something which is very important, and that will become more clear when we go on to other conceptions of rationality or reason. So ونسبة القرآن والشرع الشريف إلى هذه الغريزة في سياقها إلى انكشاف العلوم كنسبة النور الشمس إلى البصر فهكذا ينبغي أن تفهم هذه الغريزة. So what's the relationship between this reason and the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or Shara al-Sharif in general? Imam Al-Ghazali gives us another metaphor here, and the metaphor is that of the sun, the light of the sun he is giving, but we can consider the metaphor in general. So an eye sees the object that's necessary most of the time, but it's not sufficient. You need the light. Only then you can see the objects. In a similar way, reason is necessary, instrument of knowledge, but it's not sufficient because you need light, and light in this regard is the light of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the light of the teaching and the explanation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, without which we might have some knowledge, as in a dim light we might be able to see objects, but we won't be able to see them as they are, as they should be seen, or as in reality. So that's a great metaphor here. So reason is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It needs to be understood, and it needs to function in the light of all the lights, which is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its explanation by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Anyway, this is a good point to stop, but let's read the text once more and see if we left something, and then we move on to the second definition next time, inshallah. So Imam Al-Ghazali radiallahu ta'ala anhu says that فالأول, first definition, الوصف الذي يفارق الإنسان به سائر البهائم، وهو الذي بيستعد لقبول العلوم النظرية وتدبير الصناعات الخفية الفكرية، وهو الذي أراده الحارس بن أسد المحاسبي حيث قال في حد العقل إنه غريزة يتهيأ بها إدراك العلوم النظرية، وكأنه نور يكتب في القلب به يستعد لإدراك الأشياء، ولم ينسب من أنكر هذا رد العقل إلى مجرد العلوم الضرورية، فإن الغافل عن العلوم والنائم يسميان الآكلين باعتبار وجود هذه الغريزة فيهما مع فقد العلوم، وكلما أن الحياة غريزة بها يتهيأ الجسم للحركات الاختيارية والإدراكات الحسية، فكذلك العقل غريزة بها تتهيأ بعض الحيوانات للعلوم النظرية. And we just skip this paragraph and we went to كالمرات التي تفارق غيرها من الأجسام في حكاية الصور والألوان بصفة اختصت بها وهي قال، وكذلك العين تفارق الجبهة في حياة وصفات بها استعدت للرؤية، فنسبة هذه الغريزة إلى العلوم كنسبة العين إلى الرؤية، ونسبة القرآن الشريف والشرع الشريف إلى هذه الغريزة في سياقها in its context or in its the process إلى انكشاف العلوم لها كنسبة نور الشمس إلى البصر، فهكذا ينبغي أن تفهم هذه الغريزة. Alhamdulillah. So the first definition is completed, and we'll start next time with the second definition inshallah. وهي العلوم التي تخرج إلى الوجود في ذات الطفل المميز بجواد الجاهدات والسعادة. So that's necessary knowledge. So that's the second definition, or second conception of reason. Second conception of reason. Start with that next time inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.